All right, just making sure that we are live. Anyways, double checking on that. So, anyways, guys, hello. What's going on? Welcome back to another episode of IBNW News. Hope y'all had a great weekend. This is your first time here. Show that just wants to give glory to God by talking about what's going on in the Christian world, basically. And if this isn't your first time here, highly encourage you to like, share, and subscribe. So today, as you can see, what we have going on. Everybody's kind of been talking about this over the weekend. Personally, I hadn't heard about it until my wife actually asked me, like, "Hey, did you hear what's going on over in South Carolina?" Because that's really close to where we are. So no, and I didn't know what was going on. So obviously, I think a lot of people are kind of brought up to speed on this. Let's go ahead and just get into the article. So the big update that kind of came out today from this was that the medical examiner has released that Mica Miller's cause of death was ruled as a suicide. Let's just read this article, and then we'll get into the kind of the meat and potatoes of this. So it says the cause of death has been revealed for 30-year-old Mica Miller, whose story has gone viral after a video was shared showing her estranged pastor husband announcing her death in a strange way following the church service weeks after she filed for divorce. And we're actually going to go ahead and watch a clip of that just to show y'all what that looked like, because it was kind of strange in the context. So according to the Robeson County medical examiner, Dr. Richard Johnson, Miller died from self-inflicted gunshot wound. And mind you, this article is going to be a little hot and heavy when it comes to these terms and stuff like that. So if you don't want your kids watching, please don't, have this watcher, because we're going to talk about some heavy stuff throughout this. So it says Robeson County Sheriff Bernice Wilkins said they will release more information today and asked for everyone to please await the full timeline of events before making assumptions and coming to conclusions. And I think that's a key message that we do need to take away from this. Wait until everything comes out before we make assumptions and conclusions, because, oh my gosh, if you go on Twitter or anything like that, you are going to see so many people who are probably way outside the situation jumping to immediate conclusions. Now we can look at evidence, we can look at what's going on with this, and we can have assumptions in our own mind, but broadcasting that out loud as if they are facts is definitely wrong, and that's something we don't want to do here. But let's keep on reading through this. It says, notably, Miller divorced his wife after having an affair. Notably, Miller divorced his first wife after having an affair with Miller, who is 15 years his junior and who he met when she was 14 years old, and he was her youth pastor, which is, that just has trouble written all over it. We don't have much context to that, but like I said, this has trouble kind of written all over it. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and go to a different article and kind of read it here, where it kind of takes a more holistic view of what is going on. And the first article we were reading came from Protestia, and this one's coming from the Christian Post. It's written by Leonardo Blair. And as you can see here, the headline reads, "Pastor says his wife, mentally troubled wife, died by," that word right there. I mean, I already said it, but YouTube with their algorithm doesn't like that word. So, but some refuse to believe it. So let's go ahead and kind of get into this article. If for those of you who have no idea what's going on, we're about to set a little bit of the context for this. And there's some lessons, and this is the big reason why we're talking about this, is there are some lessons that we as Christians need to see from this to make sure that these mistakes don't happen again, what we see going on here. This is a very sensitive situation, and honestly, one that could have been preventable. So let's keep on moving on here. So police in North Carolina are investigating the death of Mica Miller, the wife of Pastor John Paul Miller from Solid Rock at Martin Common in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, who was found with a bullet wound to her head in the Lombard River State Park in Robeson County last Saturday, as her widower comes under a barrage of suspicion online. I actually tried to go to this church's website right here, and it looks like their website is completely taken down, whatever the case may be. So that website is not up. I couldn't get more information on it. So continuing on, it says Major Damon McLean of Robeson County Sheriff's Office told ABC 15 News that officers are gathering information from people who knew the late 30-year-old pastor's wife to understand now how she died. Last Saturday, just hours after her body was found, Pastor Miller announced to his congregation in a viral video that his wife died by suicide, even though investigators have not yet confirmed the official cause of death. And let's go ahead and actually jump over to this video right here. And we're going to jump over to Twitter, and it's on Protest Dia's page. So just a little context to this one. I tried to search for the entire sermon. I couldn't find it. It's probably out there somewhere, but this clip of the sermon is kind of what everybody's seeing. From what I've heard in the entire sermon going throughout, that he's acting very normal. This pastor whose wife just passed away is acting very normal. He's cracking jokes. And then at the very end, it gets very somber and serious, and he makes this announcement. Let's go ahead and watch this, and we can kind of decide for ourselves what we're looking at here. I'm going to go ahead and full screen it.
We're not going to do an altar call today. Instead, I'm going to have you stand up, and I'm going to make an announcement. And after the announcement, I'm going to ask that you leave church quietly and don't talk about the announcement here in the building, please, if you can. So y'all can stand to your feet. Before I make the announcement, I also want to say that my request to you is that you will continue to come to church and serve and give for the next little bit. Because I'm taking a little bit of a break, and I don't want to have to worry about the church. My break may be a few days, a few weeks, I don't know. I got a call late last night. My wife has passed away. And it was self-induced, and it was up in North Carolina. And we're going to have a funeral for her next Sunday here at 3 p.m. And so it's all I can, I'm just kind of going on adrenaline right now. So y'all pray for me and my kids and everybody. And y'all knew that she wasn't well mentally, and that she needed her medicine that was hard to get to her. And so I'm sure there'll be more details to come, but just keep our family in your prayers. And I'm going to let Pastor Randall, my bishop, he can pray. I'll get him a microphone, he'll pray out. And if you have anything you want to share as well, I appreciate it.
Come on, let's pray.
All right, so that's the video right there of what everybody's kind of talking about that went viral. Once again, this tweet came from Protest Dia. It says, Pastor John Paul Miller, Solid Rock at Market Common Church, it's such a mouthful of a church, announces death of his wife in lieu of an altar call after the service, asking congregants not to talk about it after he shares it. He was cracking jokes during the service and calling himself handsome and charging. His wife, Mica, was found with a fatal gunshot wound days after she filed for divorce from him, along with a no contact order. And you can kind of see now why a lot of people are very, very, very suspicious of what's going on, from all the issues that they kind of had throughout their marriage, the fact of how they got into their marriage, the filing for divorce, the no contact order, separation, all these different things. But let's go ahead and go back to the Christian Post article. And honestly, I'm sharing this one because it is written pretty well in a way of where they're not taking sides. Because actually, let's just go back over here to Twitter real quick. Because if you go through and read everything that's kind of going on here, obviously most of Twitter, it seems like, is leaning in one direction. And that could just be what I see, but it looks like they are, people are taking sides, and they are making very affirming statements. This is what happened. This isn't what happened. He's guilty. He's innocent, whatever the case may be. Some people even blaming the woman there. We should not be passing judgment like this yet. And this is kind of just a plea to reason, especially to the Christian community. The outside world, we can't do anything about them. We just hope and pray that they, come to repentance and believe in Jesus, and, fruits of the Spirit start kind of going out in their life. But for us who are Christians, we need to make sure that we are not making rash, harsh judgments as if they are facts, because honestly, there are probably very few people that know the facts of what is going on right now. And we as Christians need to make sure that we are not feeding into that, because honestly, we don't want to give Christianity a bad name. And especially look at all these, the false prophets that come on and make predictions, and then they end up being false. That just makes Christianity look bad. So is this in this case, if you are just kind of getting on your high horse and preaching that, oh, this is exactly what happened. How dare so-and-so or so in this. Let's go ahead and save the judgments. Let's go ahead and take a little page from Romans chapter 13 and let the law kind of work its course out and figure out what the truth is. We know right now that the medical examiner has said that, the cause of death is suicide, but of
We're
course,
not going to do an
police
altar call today.
investigation is going to go ahead and ensue after that and really kind of dig into all the facts. Let's go ahead and go back to the article. So this part just kind of reads up and says what the video says. And let's go ahead and pick up right here where the article picks back up. It says some member of Mica Miller's family, like her sister, Sierra Francis, quickly rejected the idea that she killed herself and suggested that she was being abused. She said, there is a lot of talk already going on, so I want to set the record straight. Our sister, Mica Miller, passed away yesterday. Please do not listen to the false stories being shared about her, Francis noted on Facebook. Mica was a God-fearing, joyful, loving woman who did not deserve the abuse that she endured, talking about the abuse that her husband was giving her, or the perceived abuse that we know about. If you hear anything about this from anyone other than her family, please question it. Reach out to her siblings or parents. Keep our family in your prayers. And if you have any information that needs to be shared, please contact one of us. Please respect us in this time and honor her memory with joy that she is no longer suffering. And she put a hashtag justice for Mica there. The article keeps going and says speculation about Mica Miller's death was spreading like wildfire on social media, and some critics openly questioned why Pastor Miller was in the pulpit hours after his wife's death. And honestly, that was something when my wife told me about this and kind of gave me the details of what was going on. I was like, what is that man doing in the pulpit right now? I know I've kind of been an intermittent pastor for a little bit at some areas, and there is no way that I could. If my wife died, I would need some time, a break, some mourning. I know everybody is different. Everybody has different mental capacities, agilities, things of that nature. But I would need a break. I would need to step away. I know every now and again we hear these stories like an older pastor whose wife passed away and he still goes on Sunday and he preaches a sermon. That's a little bit different from somebody who basically had a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. That's a very tragic thing. An older person who passes away, you're kind of expecting it. It's a celebration because they are in glory and they are with Jesus, but yet we're still mourning inside because we're going to miss that person. It's a much different situation than somebody who had a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head and just kind of takes everybody by surprise. This would not be something that I would be still preaching in the pulpit, at least from my personal opinion on that. So I can understand why some people are raising questions about that. And especially like we saw from the Protestia Twitter page or X page or whatever we call it these days, of how he was laughing, cracking jokes, calling himself handsome, things of that nature. That's going to make people suspicious. Let's go ahead and keep reading. It says court records cited by the New York Post showed that Mica Miller had filed for divorce from her husband in October of 2023, but the reasons were not stated. The case was eventually dismissed in February, but a few days later, Pastor Miller filed for separate support and maintenance. If you don't know what that is, that's basically a legal separation, seeking financial support. Mica Miller would file for similar support in April. A hearing was scheduled then for June 5th, which is, kind of a date that's up and coming close. So it says in an interview with the Christian Post on Friday, Pastor Miller admitted that his relationship with Mica began with adultery. He said they were both previously married and cheated on their spouses, and many people left his church, forcing them to start over. He said he and Mica got married in 2017, shortly after she underwent surgery for undisclosed reasons, and she was diagnosed with bipolar 2, schizophrenic, and dependent personality disorder. So there's a whole lot to just kind of unravel in that statement there. First off, this pastor, John Paul Miller, he is by no means qualified for ministry whatsoever. If you read through, and we've done it on this channel multiple times, 1 Timothy chapter 3, it puts the qualifications for a pastor there. If you were in the pulpit and you cheated on your wife with somebody else, you are disqualified from ministry. And then, getting married to the person that you were cheating with, it's just a big, giant mess. It's very, very wrong. Like that one article from Protestia said that there was a relationship there when he was her youth pastor. All the years of separation, it just screams of a lot of, wrong. And like I said, Miller should never have been a pastor ever again after what happened with this. He was disqualified from ministry, but yet he was able to go somewhere and start over. And there were church members that would, I'm assuming, openly endorse this because he is a pastor. I don't know if he left his old church and started a new church, went to a new church, whatever the case may be. But regardless, this man is not qualified for ministry, period. Now, I do want to be clear on that because some people may take that the wrong way. And this is, once again, I want to make sure this is my personal opinion on this because scripture does not explicitly say, but I do believe that, let's say you did divorce your wife or you cheated on your wife before you were a Christian. And then God sovereignly saves you, you become a Christian, and then you feel the call for ministry and you want to go into ministry. Well, based off of how I read the Bible, I don't believe the sins of the past that we committed before we were a Christian, before we were a new creation in Jesus Christ, should be held against us in that. Because like I said, we are a new creation in Jesus Christ, as the Apostle Paul wrote. So those things were dead and gone. Now, after professing being a Christian, that's a much different story. And like we see right here, this man should not have been in a pulpit. That's one thing that could have, I don't know all the intricate details, but could have possibly prevented this tragedy from happening. Let's keep going on. I mean, actually, I don't want to keep going on because there's so many other things wrong with this. And we go back to like how he was the youth pastor. Was there a pastor that stepped up and saw what was potentially going on here? Was there a spiritual authority in this Pastor Miller's life when he was cheating on his wife with his future wife? Was there somebody who stepped in and said, hey, man, this is not right. This is wrong. You should not be doing this. Let's just go keep reading on because it just bodes bad for Christianity. It makes Christians look bad because we constantly, and when I say we, I'm talking about churches all in general, constantly let people inside the pulpit who are not qualified, who have no business being there whatsoever. Let's keep going on. It says since 2017, Pastor Miller said they have been trying to manage his wife's mental illness with lithium and significant support. As long as she took her medication, Pastor Miller said his wife would be fine. However, she had a roller coaster relationship with the medication. And if you don't know what lithium is, basically that is a drug that you use for bipolar disorder. Article continues on. He alleged that she would complain about how the medication would make her gain weight or cause her to slur. And earlier this year, the wife of the well-meaning pastor's friend, who had no understanding of the mental illness, offered to pray and believed that Mica's mental illness would go away. And that incident, he said, stuck with Mica, and she started to believe that she no longer needed the medication. Now, this is another thing that we can kind of learn from. So I do like how the article put a well-meaning pastor friend who had no understanding of the mental illness, because, obviously this pastor probably had no idea what was going on with the internal battle. But take it from me, somebody who has been in my earlier Christian years, I've been kind of associated with some more charismatic churches. Some people were very quick to go ahead and just say you have an issue, and they'll say, oh, well, God is prompting me, or God is telling me that you are going to defeat this and you don't need that medicine anymore. And people grab hold of that. And whether that is true or not, me personally, I don't believe that we have prophets around anymore today. I believe that time has come and gone, and we could debate that all we want later on, as it's not really pertinent to the topic. But regardless, we as Christians need to make sure that we are not saying things so carelessly to people such as that, like, this mental illness will go away. We don't know that. Don't say things that we don't know. I remember when I was in the Army and we were in a situation where going through a combat lifesavers class, where the situation would be where a buddy is basically not going to make it. He's not going to survive. And if they ask you, am I going to make it? You don't lie to them and tell them, absolutely, man, you're going to make it. You're going to make it. You just say, we are going to do everything we can. You don't ever lie to them and tell them something that you don't know. Same thing for us as Christians. Don't go and tell people, oh, this problem that you're having, it's going to go away. God is going to fix it. It's going to be gone. We don't understand everything. when it comes to why some Christians are healed when they pray for it, others are not. We leave it up to God because God is sovereign. He has the bigger plan. He knows everything. He knows the beginning from the end, and he uses all things together for the good for those who love God and who are called according to his purpose. It doesn't mean all things are going to be good. So what we as Christians need to make sure, as much as we want to say, hey, this mental illness is going to go away, we can't make statements that we don't actually know the truth of. Okay, that little side rant's over. Let's go ahead and keep on going. And sorry for the ads on here. So I took care of her through every single time she went to the mental institute. This is the pastor continuing to talk. I took care of her every time she stopped taking her lithium. I would never expose this stuff to her if I didn't have to now. But every time she tried to kill herself, I would be there. I literally sometimes pick her up physically, put her in the truck, take her to the hospital, Miller said with a slight crack in his voice. The pastor said he took his wife to probate court. If you don't know what that is, that's basically where you it has multiple meanings, but in this case, it means you're trying to get somebody admitted by force to a mental hospital, that this person needs to be in a mental hospital. But it says the pastor said he took his wife to probate court, but the court basically refused, saying that she was not a danger to others, and so she could not be forced in. He said, nobody believed me when I told them that she was having a psychotic break, that she would she would have never left. She would have never done what she did. They wouldn't believe me. I have 48 text messages I sent out saying she needs her lithium. Someone help me, please. And no one believed me, the grieving pastor said. Everybody thought I was a demon for trying to take her to probate court, get her put in a hospital. I told her family, I have text messages over and over. I told her family she needs her medicine. They told me that I'm crazy. She said she doesn't need any medicines. I text messaged her, but they sent her saying it makes you feel fat or you slur and you shouldn't take your meds, or you just need something holistic. Don't worry. You don't need what the doctors say. And, that's honestly, we do need to remember as Christians, God can heal 100% of everything at all times. But we also need to understand that God does heal not just through miraculous miracles, but through the miracle of healing drugs that God has given us. Now, I want to urge with caution, because like we talked about in the last live stream, in the John MacArthur thing, that there are things out there where people are trying to make money and they are going to over medicate. And the first answer is medication. And we have to guard against that. But at the same time, we do have to trust that what the doctors are saying is true, for this, and do our homework, do our research, and make sure we get multiple opinions on places, because what we don't want to do is over medicate. But at the same time, we don't want to ignore what doctors are saying, especially if somebody is a danger to themselves or others. So that's all I'm really going to say on that, because like I said, I'm not a doctor, so I can't efficiently comment on that fully. I could just talk to you about my past experiences like I did in the last live stream and keep moving on. It said, though there were some things that Pastor Miller said were discussed with his church, he said the depths of the struggle with his wife's mental illness felt quite lonely at times. He said, nobody believed me. Nobody understood the mental illness. She was diagnosed by the doctors for the past 7 years as bipolar 2, schizophrenic, and dependent personality disorder. And I was with her every time she thought she was seeing aliens, or when she saw or artificial intelligence was after her, or when I was with her through everything. In the last psychotic episode she didn't know who I was, he explained. She thought that I was the enemy somehow. Nobody believed me. Everybody thought she was just being her normal self. Nobody understood. With her mental illness, people understand that she can say a sentence that's normal, and in the very next sentence, she'd say with the same cadence, the same tone, it would be completely abnormal, which is why people don't understand. She said, I didn't want to make, she said I would, sorry, it's always difficult when you're reading somebody talking because it doesn't come out as well, but here we go. She says, she'd say, I'd want to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and after that, I'm going to learn how to fly. The Reverend Charles Randall, Pastor Miller's spiritual advisor and mentor, told the Christian Post, basically, social media is very wicked and saying things and lying about the situation, things that they are not aware of. And what we're kind of seeing here, and I'm breaking away from the article here for a second, what you are kind of seeing as you go through this is you have basically two sides split. You have, like, when we move into the closer inner circle, we have the pastor's side with this, spiritual advisor and mentor, kind of going to bat for him, taking his side. You have her family refusing to believe that this was a suicide, or refusing to believe that even if it was a suicide, this was, her kind of being crazy, but rather that the pastor was kind of the one who was pulling the strings on all that stuff. And we see these two sides kind of colliding. Like I said, this is why it's important that we as Christians make sure we wait until we gather all the facts and see what the judgment comes out of this when the investigation is over. But I want to know, this Reverend Charles Randall, where was he when he was going through all of his issues? Is this somebody who was a lifelong mentor? Because once again, I go back to the fact that this man never should have been in a pulpit in the first place. He should have been somebody to tell him, hey, look, you're outside biblical parameters. You should not be in ministry. And once again, maybe that was something that would have contributed to this not happening. We just don't know, regardless of who was right, who was wrong, what happened, who did what. So let's go ahead and keep reading the article. So it says, he said he has known Miller for a long time and was one of his teachers in high school. He also, so he did know him for a while. He also said he had been counseling Mica and Pastor Miller since September 2023 and was not aware of any abuse. He acknowledged that there was a, quote, little bump in the road during the efforts to restore their marriage, but did not disclose what that bump was. And that's what you're seeing a lot, going back to what we were reading on X or Twitter, whatever it's called nowadays, that a lot of people are accusing this man that there was a lot of abuse, whether it was physical, whether it was mental, psychological, anything like that, which is what drove her to do this. And then on the other side, you have people saying, no, it wasn't that. This was her mental illness that caused this. It's sad because you see it very split. Once again, we as Christians need to guard against making assumptions and just kind of let the facts play out. We continue on. It says, I live by the Holy Spirit of God. If God led me to remove him, I will do that. It has not happened at this time. As far as abuse, they are lying about that. There was no abuse, Randall told the Christian Post. And we do actually know, if you look up, I didn't pull the article up here, but basically this spiritual advisor, Reverend Charles, I had to look him up because he was a little difficult to find, but he did make a post where basically he did remove John Paul from his ministry or his pastorate, saying that he needs a break for everything that's kind of going on right now. So he did effectively remove him from ministry. I guess he had that type of authority over him to be able to do that. So let's keep going on. It says, as far as working with him, I've been working closely with him since last September on their marriage. They did have a little bump in the road, no abuse, and he was working on that. The marriage was in the process of being restored, Randall said. He continues on and says, with Pastor Miller, the night he got the call, he was with Pastor Miller the night he got the call about his wife. And despite what people thought about his preaching last Sunday, he was tore up. And once again, that's the other thing. That he went up there, he preached a message. He seemed very much, from, once again, I didn't see it, but from when I was reading, people who did see it, he seemed very normal, very calm, cracking jokes, all that kind of stuff before he gave his heartfelt message at the end. But his pastor, this pastor, Randall, Reverend Randall, whatever title he goes by, says tore up. He was tore up. He was very tore up when he got the news. I was with him on Saturday night when he received the news. Very, 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 very tore up about it because he loved his wife very much. And if the naysayers would tell the truth, they would know how much he did and tried to please his wife, Randall said. We keep moving on. It says, the same people that are lying and saying that he mistreated his wife, even the family members, he offered to pray for every family member to travel from wherever they are, wherever they live, to bring them here, to pay their accommodation for their accommodations and take care of them, to honor his wife during this time. And they are in the streets, some of them, I believe, lying about what he is doing, he added. Randall said the rumors online that the pastor is already about the pastor is that he's already started dating somebody else. He said that's not true. Once again, online can be a very good thing because information can spread. Another thing, information could be bad because it could be false. We don't know whether or not this is true or not. According to this Randall, he says it's not true. And then he said, when asked why Mica Miller wanted to leave her marriage, Randall said Mica did not even tell him that she was filing for a divorce. She did not relay that to me, he said. Randall further noted that he couldn't remember the last time he counseled the couple together, and was never told why Mica wanted to end her marriage. Pastor Miller had promised to answer additional questions from the Christian Post, but noted that after talking with his attorney, he was advised not to speak further because he was getting death threats. Randall also noted protesters are expected at Mica's funeral on Sunday. Yeah, this is still just so crazy how kind of all of this is going down. And we're going to start wrapping it up here very soon. But once again, overarching message, big idea for this is, number one, as Christians, we need to make sure that we are not people who are spreading false information and making accusations based on assumptions when we don't know facts about things. Things like this seem to grab the news very easy, and it kind of gets all over. Another thing that we need to make sure of, just some of the little lessons that we see on here. Number one, we need to make sure that people who are actually qualified to be in ministry are in ministry, because who knows what type of potentiality that had in this kind of progressing that the way it did. This man never should have been behind a pulpit. He never should have been a pastor, but yet he still was. So many other questions kind of get raised up. And where were the people inside of his life that keeping him accountable when all this stuff was going down? And last thing I guess I really want to hit on, because I didn't talk about it much, is make sure that every single person, that every Christian, especially if you are a leader, you need to make sure that you have somebody that you are held accountable to, whether that's through, once again, modern technology is kind of great. Everybody's got this cell phone, and there are plenty of apps on here that kind of keep us accountable with each other, whether or not it's, those app sharing sites where if you contact certain websites, or maybe somebody who can have access to your text messages, whatever the case may be. So that way you're at least being held accountable, being screened, and making sure that that is a roadblock to temptation, a roadblock to something wrong. And that way somebody who you trust in your life can speak into it and say, hey, look, man, I'm seeing what's going on here. This is wrong. This is definitely wrong. This needs to stop, whatever the case may be. So with that being said, I guess we're going to continue to wait on to see what further develops from this. But let us know what you think in the comments. And if you have any questions, or, I almost want to be careful with that, because once again, what we don't want to do is start making assumptions. So please be kind, please be courteous in the comments to these people and their family, because who knows what really happened. There are only a few people that know exactly what happened, maybe only one who knows right now. And we need to be careful in making these assumptions till it's all said and done. But let me know what you think about the article, and any comments or questions that you may have along the way. But anyways, this is Tim, IBNW News, signing out, and we will have a good one. Make sure we are praying for all these people involved. All right. Talk to you all in the next one.